However, I don't think we should be painting racism as entirely evil, because, well, there's a reason why people are racist, and that's not because people want to be bad, it's because there are objective benefits to being racist. And I don't think we should be discrediting these benefits with all this virtue signaling bullshit, because
I'm just speechless, honestly. Like, I'm actually surprised that this guy somehow escaped my notice. I mean, what more is there to say?
For a lot of people.
I'm going to take a moment to just process all of this, and I'll get back to you all in just a few moments. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Teacher Panda back in action to talk about something else today. By something else, it's something slightly new. So yeah, inexplicably, a friend of mine actually shined a spotlight on this last night and basically linked me to a video. The video was about a particular YouTuber out there that had posted a video that was immediately taken down, but has been re-uploaded several times, and many other YouTubers, more politically aligned than my channel happens to be, took notice of it. So there is a furry out there who is a goat boy, and this particular goat boy, probably a ram because of the horns and stuff like that, but he describes himself as a furry intellectual. Me personally, I think that's an oxymoron. I have not seen many furry intellectuals. Don't get me wrong, there's plenty of smart furries out there. They really know what they're talking about. But, like, to proclaim yourself as a furry intellectual, what is your background? What is your degree? What is your, like, you know, what are your, like, what standing do you have in the academic community to call yourself a furry intellectual? Do you have a degree in a woo? I mean, that's what I'm asking, but no, this particular YouTuber happens to have a ram persona. A lot of people just call him Racist Goat Boi. You're going to see why in a few minutes. He's got a very particular proclivity for feet and paws, apparently. Yeah, throughout the whole video, the artwork of his character was lightly animated to the point that there were stink clouds fucking wafting off of his sweaty-ass feet. And it doesn't start out that way. It just starts out like he just kicks them up on the table in the artwork that he uses as a display picture. And over time, they get sweaty, and then there's, like, you know, stink clouds just wafting through the air, radiating from those feet. It's really bizarre. But anyway, it actually, like, when my friend was first describing the individual and how they put their feet up, I don't know why, but it, like, reminded me of Artemis Wishfoot. The way that, like, in his intro, he would kick his feet up, like, you know, at the forefront of whatever camera shot for the intro, and was just, like, rocking back and forth to, I guess, the song that's stuck in his head or something like that, as he pretends to drink coffee in fursuit. But thankfully, Artemis Witchfoot is not involved in this to any degree. This particular individual is by the name of Achilles Argyle, I believe. His videos got taken down for good reason. You're about to see why, or at least hear why from me. But yeah, Achilles Argyle, he proclaims himself to be a furry intellectual. Again, his qualifications and background and academic standing are not really, you know, they are not really explained to any degree throughout the video, so I'm just going to go ahead and move on from there. But he basically defends racism and slavery. No joke. Like, he just comes out and says, hey, racism is actually a good thing. It's good to be surrounded by like-minded people to explore the freedom that that gives you. And don't deny it. Racism makes you feel good. And I have never once felt, like, you know, good about that sort of thing. I personally am not racist. I basically accept everybody regardless of their skin color, gender, orientation, so on, but it really comes down to your mode of character and your personality. Obviously, I'm going to have a preference for certain people of certain, like, personalities over others. That's just my preference, alright? It really depends on a variety of factors as to whether or not you're somebody that I would particularly like to hang out with or spend an inordinate amount of time with. Achilles over here, Racist Goat Boi, he probably doesn't fit the bill. But, you know, aside from his racist views, yeah, the way that he talks is just kind of weird to me. Like, something about it, it seems like that edgy kid that's at the back of the class with, like, the really long black hair, wearing a trench coat, and just kind of, like, acting like he knows everything about the world. But apart from his academic dishonesty in some of his points, he He basically states that racism is a good thing and that America was great because at the time we had slave labor. No joke, like 4 minutes in, he basically comes out and says, hey, great civilizations were built on the backs of disposable labor. Labor that could be exploited to make the civilization great. And I'm pretty sure in today's modern age, we can definitely have a great society without racism or like slavery. But, maybe I'm just crazy like that. Maybe maybe Achilles over here has something to say. But yeah. He basically used China like derogatively in the beginning, and then he like transitions and says, hey, China is now a superpower because they exploit their own people. And then he bashes on India for being a contributor to the world's pollution, and he keeps going like back and forth on various subject matter, kind of like I do, but granted, my stuff's not really scripted. All of this is improvised based on a combination of my awareness of a given subject matter, in this case Achilles Argyle, and just imparting my commentary and opinions in real time for you all to enjoy later after I record it. Maybe put some little editing there and then submit it to YouTube for your enjoyment. But anyway, I gotta say, like, what's distracting for me is that throughout the video, stink clouds just start wafting away from his feet. It's just really gross. I really think he should... it's weird. Usually, feet don't start to stink after... if you just, showered or something like that, they don't start to stink after, 5 minutes of you talking about stuff. Although, I don't know, in his case, I guess it's a fetish thing. No judgments if you're into musk and, paws, but again, it's very distracting when you're talking about such a very controversial topic. And speculation throughout the community, apart from the general backlash and, diatribes that some of the other YouTubers were imparting on this particular subject matter, a lot of people are convinced that this is a troll. That this was a troll video, that this is a troll character meant to just be a character that somebody's assuming, and I don't know, I'm legit convinced that this is a real person, posting his real actual thoughts, and he just came to this epiphany one day and said, I must share my great wisdom with the likes of the furry fandom. And he did. And, surprisingly, amidst Boogie and Darkside Phil and Diesel Raccoon and, various other things going on, I completely missed it. A friend of mine actually had to, sort of tap my shoulder and say, hey, you gotta check this out. This is wild, man. And it definitely was wild. I watched the complete unedited version of his video, and I have to say, it gave me some form of cancer. So, should I really go into why racism is bad? I mean, we've sort of come to, the understanding here, at least in the United States, that, human lives, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your gender, regardless of your orientation, or your ethnicity, or nationality, or anything like that, you are measured by the weight of your own merits, that you have freedom of opportunity to rise above whatever past history might be, casting a shadow over, you in the present, that you have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and you have equal opportunity wherever you go. Now, granted, if you happen to work at a workplace that's a, right-to-work state and, things like that, obviously, if you have a superior that does not like you because of your skin color, they can probably come up with some bullshit ways of getting you out. So, obviously it's not perfect, but we've certainly came to the consensus, generally speaking, that racism is kind of a bad thing. Honestly, I see it more as just getting in the way of the collaborative efforts of society being able to come together to achieve true greatness, but that's just my outlook on things. Also, a lot of people, why can't we just abide by the whole ideals of live and let live? Why do we have to let race dictate who's who and who's privileged and who's not, and who's racist and who's not? And we shouldn't be aspiring to make a segregated society like the past. Like, that shouldn't be glorified. Me first, I know that, like, in a recent video, I was talking about my concerns of the future. I did cite that in past history, if you look at past society, it seemed fairly functional, and a lot of things were made in the past that are still in use today. Like, as far as the systems and the, like, ideas are still in use because they were good ideas. They had the propensity to serve a greater amount of people beyond the people that they were serving at the time. And yeah, the past generations are viewed sometimes by millennials and Gen Z as racist, bigoted, and, homophobic, but even among Europeans, there's, like, they're all white. Like, you would look at them and they're all Caucasian, but historically speaking, like, based on the country of origin from which you came, you would definitely be discriminated by another country. Even though, like, your skin color would make you look similar, from first glance. Definitely some certain trends and characteristics and appearances that, differentiate between the various countries of origin that you might hail from if you were hypothetically, from Bulgaria or Germany or something like that. But that's a subject matter for another time. Let's go back to Achilles Argyle. So he basically states that we should intentionally, like, bring back racism, that racism is a good thing, because it's going to desensitize us so that we can actively exploit minorities and enslave them, which is truly abhorrent, but, he thinks that's a viable option. He's going to make, like, he basically took Trump's Make America Great Again. It's like, why do you think America was great once upon a time? It's because we had slavery, and we had racism, and we had the means and ability to exploit them. And it's like, I don't know. I actually, like, looked into whether or not slavery was good for the South. Like, one of the main reasons for the Civil War, I'll have you know, technically, racism, like, slavery was a contributing factor to the whole, like, North v. South, but it really came down to states' rights versus the federal government, technically. But we all know it was about slavery. That was the core issue. That was the question of, can the federal government state to the states, hey, listen, we passed this amendment, and you need to let the slaves go. And I don't know, it's a messy subject. I'm not going to get into that, but yeah, Achilles was, like, bringing up all these controversial points, and I've never seen so many controversial hot takes, like, crammed into one video. And with this smug satisfaction of, I know what I'm talking about, and you need to listen to me and take credence in what I'm saying. Never mind the fact that, like, today, like, in our modern society, with everything that we know now, we know why racism was bad. We know why slavery was bad. At the time, I guess you can make the argument that the people, based on the cultural beliefs, there was a high social stigma that carried from cradle to the grave. You had high expectations of society. Society had great expectations of you, and there were archaic, draconian measures put in place that were adhered to for a long damn time, for, the reasoning because you were expected to do so, and if you didn't, you were outcasts of society. You would not be able to do anything in society. You couldn't get a job, you couldn't buy bread, you couldn't do certain things if you did not adhere to the expectations and standards of general society. And I don't say that, like, that standards have fallen, quite the contraire. You might, like, look at United States society right now and say, ooh, it's an ugly society, but and as far as, like, social outlooks and various other things, if you spend any time on Twitter and you spend any time in the general public, there are certain things that you don't say or do in public that are going to get you ostracized, and in some cases fired from your job, or maybe, like, attacked in extreme cases, but whatever. The point is that we're trying to facilitate the means by which all people, regardless of skin color, can live their lives as, by whatever choices that they want to make. And if they break the law, then they're going to go to jail for it. Although the judicial system could definitely use some work. Heard plenty of stories. Depends really on the state that you come from. that based on the color of your skin, sometimes you get a harsher sentence for the same crime as committed by a Caucasian individual, but whatever. That's not the subject matter of this video. Where do I even begin to, like, dismantle some of the things that Racist Goat Boi over here said? Because, like, of many... He said, like, what was it? There's a particular phrase that, like, sort of stuck out in my mind. He basically said that racism is the yin to, like, the soul, which is the yang, and that they were meant for each other. And it's like, how the fuck do you come to that conclusion? Like, when we're born, do we automatically go, I'm racist, I don't like those darkies? Like, where does that come from? Like, how can you attribute that to, like, the human soul or the spirit? That's my question. Like, where does that, in his mind, where does that come from? That is so asinine. He says this basic garbly gook of, like, you know, a word salad and expects it to mean something profound. And that we're supposed to readily be like, huh, I never thought of it that way. You know, maybe racism is a good thing. Yeah, I'm not convinced. Like, you see people as people. You shouldn't see them as, like, a black person or an Asian person or a Hispanic person. Maybe if you're, like, trying to describe them to the police and they had done something, maybe. But, or, like, you know... or you're trying to describe somebody, but, oh man, you know, this just reminds me of something. When I got my handgun permit for my state, the application where you were, like, supposed to fill out a form and turn it in, do you know what it said? It actually, like, you know, it asked for your race and various other, like, things about you. You couldn't just describe who you were. It said something very... questionably racist. I come from Maryland, by the way, for context, which is technically a southern state. I believe Maryland technically was part of the South during the Civil War, but my father actually pointed out, like, a couple of hotbeds of, like, KKK activity back in the bad old days he told me about. But no, it was, like, just kind of weird to me. It's like, what, my hair color, my height, my weight, and my, like, eye color isn't good enough for you? I have to tell you that I am Asian? It was weird. But, yeah, I didn't get, like, you know, rejected or anything like that. I got my handgun permit and, you know, never heard anything back from them again. But, yeah, I guess, like, there are some, like, lingering fragments of the past that carry over to the present, and I guess that's what the social justice warriors and various other people are still angry about. Whether or not you can justify some of their actions, that's up for you to decide, but me personally, we don't need people that are espousing extreme ideologies. Like, if they're going to do so, that's fine, you know, freedom of speech and all that, but that doesn't mean I have to, like, you know, support what you're saying, and it certainly doesn't mean that I can't kind of chuckle behind your back at how ludicrous you are sounding. I will just say right now, like, a lot of these movements, like, historically, there's been a lot of racist movements, and you know what the populists generally did at the time? Depending on the unpopularity of the opinions or the ideals that were trying to be spread, one solution was just ignoring them. Like, you know, not paying them any mind. Just, you know, it's like, oh, okay, that's what you believe? Alright, well, you're certainly entitled to your opinion, sir. And because of their unpopularity, they would just fade into obscurity. That's the solution. Now, why am I, like, shining the spotlight on Achilles, like, you know, Racist Goat Boi over here? Well, because he's the subject matter of drama, and as you know, like, drama just happens to be something I cover on this channel. Whether that's a good thing or bad thing, you're free to share your opinions in the comments, but, you know, it feels like I'm sort of spreading some furry news. I'm sort of like the town crier. It really depends on the individual. Like, obviously, some people, you get into plenty of moral and ethical gray areas that you questionably do not want to tread, but an Achilles goat, I keep wanting to say Achilles goat heel. Achilles, like, Argyle, in this case, like, he just seems like a very cringy individual. The presentation, his persona doesn't look bad, although I don't remember sheep having feet. I remember sheep having hooves, but I guess hooves don't really fit into his particular fetish of feet and musk and sweat and, you know, like, pobs. So I guess he had to modify that a little bit to fulfill his, deep, dark fantasies. I don't know. I'm not sure why he's sharing it with the rest of us, because some of us don't really share into that, but, I guess that's what he wants to see in his presentation of his, persona, as he talks about racism and slavery. But yeah, he showcases some very clear biases, and that's just stating the obvious, I suppose. It's weird that he not only, condemns China, like in an earlier part of this video, but he also celebrates China as being, a superpower, and having brought itself up to superpower status because it had based itself on the backs of its own people. And he's making the argument that by, people of your own blood. So I guess in his mind, he's thinking, everybody that's white. The problem with everybody that's quote-unquote white is that you have various, nationalities of white, and that's not even getting to the ethnicities and, various other things. It really depends on your geographical location, but, white individuals that hail from Russia are certainly going to be different from white individuals that hail from, say, Ireland. There's going to be some very clear differences, and we're not even getting into culture right now. So just because you're white doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get along with, people that look like you. Same with African, nations. Then, Africa as a, a landmass continent, there are so many different cultures and, individuals of said culture that have maybe not the best outlook on their neighbors. They don't like people from other countries that are relatively close to them as neighbors. So drawing lines on the white supremacy, white racist sort of outlook doesn't really work. I suppose in America you can make the argument that it could work, but could work for them. I mean, if they had gotten powerful enough that they could basically stampede the rest of us, but that doesn't really sound like something I'm particularly interested in. Just saying, as a person of color myself, I'm, by the way, I'm not trying to pick sides here. I'm not trying to draw lines on, your particular skin color or anything like that. I'm just saying that a lot, the more you think about this, the more it's where does he even come to these conclusions? And consider whether or not the white individuals are even speaking the same language, if they could even understand each other, because there are a number of different languages out there spoken by various people, and not everyone knows English, alright? But let's assume something as we get to the end of this video. He is speaking in the framework of America, because he definitely sounds American. I'm not trying to be presumptuous here, but let's just go ahead and say he's American. Alright, yeah, a lot of those movements, like the KKK movement, I think the KKK movement actually had 3 iterations. One was from the 1800s, then it kind of faded away. Then they brought it back in the early 1900s, and it faded away. And then the 3rd iteration is what we currently have. I believe there's only 5,000 members. And a friend of mine would often say that's 5,000 members too many. But yeah, in a nation full of 320 million people thereabouts, I don't think they're going to have a lot of pull or influence over the rest of the society. And my perception of them is kind of poor, because if they are supposed to encapsulate the greatest, attributes and, characteristics of quote-unquote the great white race, shouldn't they be doctors, physicists, and people that are truly remarkable individuals? What I usually see are people that work menial, jobs, at Home Depot or things like that, and they're angry that they've been deprived the opportunities of being truly great because of their perception that minorities have stolen their jobs and things like that. That's an issue that's not really a race issue. That's more of a, the fact that a lot of America has outsourced its labor to other countries to, 1, solve pollution, and 2, to make products cheaper to acquire. Obviously, there's going to be sort of a action-reaction sort of thing happening when you do that. And it's unfortunate, but you kind of have to learn to do something else, and it sucks. Like, it sucks that you've been a coal miner for, like, a decent portion of your life, but when the mines go dry and you have to find new work, you can't just dwell on the past and be like, hey, like, this finite resource that I've been mining for 10 years is gone now. What do I do? And the government should really step in and provide outreach programs, maybe some training programs, like really train these people into other fields. There has to be some sort of a mutual understanding between all members of society that we adhere to these rules, laws, and that we have an understanding. At the end of the day, people should honestly appeal to their inner conscience that the person that they live with, I'm not saying like literally live with in the same household, I'm talking about as their neighbors, they are human beings, first and foremost. It shouldn't matter what someone's skin color is, or, you know, their nationality or ethnicity or anything like that. It should be that they are a human being, and if they were born in America, regardless of their skin color, they're automatically an American citizen. That's just one of the laws on the books, for citizenship's sake. Although there are paths to citizenship without having to be born here. That is like a thing. But yeah, Racist Goat Boi, he certainly lives up to the moniker that a lot of people were putting on him as being a racist goat boy. But yeah, it's an entertaining watch if you want to kill yourself for about 10 minutes. But after, like, when he transitioned from racism to slavery, I just kind of went, what? Yeah, I was surprised that he actually went there. He actually advocated for it. And so, yeah, his credibility is a bit shot. He has no moral standing or ethical standing as far as I can estimate. But, you know, such is life. If he wants to hold himself to those ideals, he's free to do so. However, that also does not shield him from due criticism, which, you know, not to mention the fact that he was historically wrong on so many points. Like, there's a reason things are the way they are today. And you can make the argument that certain influential factors along the way had kind of, you know, influenced the outcome. And whether you want to be on the side of, hey, this is a good thing, hey, this is a bad thing. But whether or not it's a good thing, I would say it depends. Like, you know, we are a nation of initially settlers, although the settlers, the generations that came after the settlers had accepted people to come into the country over a span of time. We haven't even acknowledged the Native Americans, by the way, that were here prior to, you know, European settlers of European stock coming in and settling the country. Whether or not what they did was a good thing, that's really for you to decide, but one thing that I cannot deny is that America as a nation, I feel, was a particularly unique and profound and great nation. And if you want to get in my face and yell that America is not great, I would challenge you to find a place in the world that does not have the history that is influencing, you know, either the laws or the protocol or the cultural norms of the day, and deny that there is true freedom here, that you have the freedom to say, like, speak your mind without the fear of prosecution from the government, that you can arm yourself with guns and, you know, defend yourself in limited cases if your life is in direct danger, that you are, you know, free to enjoy the fruits of your labor, and that you're not usually taxed to bejesus and back, although you can make the argument that wages have not gone up with taxes to make that, you know, a universal thing based on your income. But all in all, America is truly a unique system and unique country, and this melting pot, for all of its negatives, I enjoy the fact that I can live here without the fear of being murdered by my fellow citizen based on the color of my skin. Although, with the recent spate of anti-Asian attacks, maybe that's put into question. Not exactly, you know, not exactly a good thing to look forward to, but, you know, a lot of emotions are high right now because of the COVID-19 and being in lockdown for over a year. Thankfully, I haven't experienced that yet, and hopefully I never do. But if I do, I'm gonna fight to my last dying breath. I promise you that. Anyway, hope you all enjoy the video, guys. Take care and peace. I hope you all have a better one.
Okay. Let's go have some fun.